Tyrell Jackson stood rigid in front of the massive glass desk, the 20th floor of Collins Enterprises, looming behind him like a fortress of steel and ambition. The leather chair beneath him was cold, unyielding, practically rejecting him with every creak. His fingers brushed the edge of his navy suit, still stiff from the store tags, as his pulse thumped in his ears. Day one as a junior analyst, and the air felt thick, heavy with something he couldn't pin down. The only sound was the sharp scratch of a pen on paper, slicing through the silence like a blade. It came from Richard Collins, the silver-haired titan of this corporate empire, scribbling away, eyes glued to his desk, ignoring Tyrell like he was a speck. This is it, Tyrell thought, jaw tight. Mom's sacrifices. My grind, it's all for this shot. He was 26, sharp-eyed and restless, a black man who'd clawed his way into a world of white collars and whispered deals. Collins Enterprises wasn't just a job. It was the big leagues, a towering insurance giant in Manhattan's financial district. Tyrell had fought through college, internships, and sleepless nights to land here, 26 years after Amara's world had shifted in ways he didn't yet understand. Now, sitting across from the CEO himself, he felt every step of that journey pressing down, daring him to prove he belonged. Richard finally set his pen down, the motion slow, deliberate, like a judge dropping a gavel. He leaned back in his throne-like chair and fixed Tyrell with a stare cool, distant, his steel gray eyes narrowing just enough that a vein pulsed faintly at his temple. Jackson, huh? His voice was smooth, deep, filling the room without trying. Strong name. Let's see if you live up to it. Tyrell's heart kicked hard against his ribs. Why was the big man even talking to him? Newbies didn't get FaceTime with Richard Collins not on day one, not unless they'd already made waves. Tyrell forced a nod, keeping his cool. I plan to, sir. But inside, his mind raced. What's with that look? What's he seeing me, Vaisla? That vein, that flicker, it wasn't just scrutiny. It was something buried, something alive. Before he could dig deeper, his phone buzzed in his pocket, low hum cutting the stillness. He ignored it, but the distraction lingered. Richard's gaze held a beat too long, that shadow in his eyes deepening. Recognition? Suspicion? Before he waved a hand, get to it then. Dismissed. Tyrell stood, legs steady despite the adrenaline surging, and headed for the door. As he stepped into the humming office cubicles alive with chatter, phones ringing, his phone buzzed again. He pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A text from Amara, his mom. Be careful, T. That place hides more than you know. His throat tightened. Amara was as rock-tough, unbreakable, the woman who'd raised him solo on grit and diner wages. Why was she spooked now? He started typing, what's that mean? But paused, thumb hovering. Tyrell glanced back at Richard's office, the glass walls glinting under the lights. That stare, those eyes, that pulsing vein stuck to him like damp smoke. What's she scared of? He muttered, shoving the phone away. And why is he watching me like I'm a ghost he knows? Something was wrong, deep, dark, and close. Tyrell Jackson didn't let mysteries sit not when they smelled this dangerous. Tyrell Jackson slumped into the subway seat, the train's rattle vibrating through him as Manhattan's lights streaked past in a blur. His first day at Collins Enterprises still buzzed in his head. Richard Collins' narrowed eyes, that pulsing vein at his temple, a Amara's text clinging like a shadow. Be careful, T. That place hides more than you know. He closed his eyes and flashes hit Amara slinging hash browns at the diner, hands cracked from dishwater, counting crumpled bills under a flickering bulb. You're my fighter, T, she'd say, voice rough but fierce. Rise above. Shed work doubles to get him through school, never breaking, always pushing. Tyrell had made it here, Collins Enterprises, the big time, 26 years after whatever had gone down with her, something she wouldn't spill. So why was she spooking him now when he was finally grabbing the prize? Back at the office, he'd hit the ground running. The 20th floor was a machine, keyboards clacking, phones chirping, voices sharp with deals. Tyrell cracked data fast, outsmarted the Ivy League kids, earned a grudging nice catch. Jackson from Ms. Carterall while Richard's shadow loomed. Carter was a brick wall and heels tough, no nonsense, the kind who'd fire you for breathing wrong. He liked that. It kept him sharp, hungry. But that stare from Richard stuck, a splinter he couldn't shake. Mid-morning, the briefing came. Richard swept in, silver hair gleaming, tailored suit screaming power, dropping lines about vision and legacy like a preacher on a roll. Tyrell scribbled notes, head down, until Richard's voice cut through. Tyrell Jackson. The room froze. Tyrell's pen stopped, eyes snapping up to meet those steel gray ones again, narrowed, vein pulsing faintly. Don't let that name go to waste, Richard said. Smooth as bourbon, but edged with something challenge. Threat? Heads turned, the air thickened. Why was the CEO clocking a newbie? Tyrell forced a tight, yes, sir, but his gut twisted. He's testing me. What's his play? Richard held his gaze a beat too long, then moved on, leaving Tyrell's pulse hammering. The office buzz painted Richard as a god ruthless, brilliant, a titan who buried rivals without blinking. Collins doesn't mess around, a coworker muttered over coffee. Guy's got a kill list longer than the tax code. Tyrell smirked, exaggeration. I see you, but it's stuck. He caught Richard staring again later, mid-conversation with some suit, that same flicker in his eyes, something knowing, something dark. It hit like a fist. He's got a game running, and I'm in it. That night, he couldn't let it go. The apartment was quiet, Amara still at her shift. Tyrell sat at his desk, laptop glowing, the Collins Enterprises logo glaring back from the login screen. Hides more than you know, Shed said. Screw it. He hacked in not the main system, just old HR files buried in digital dust. Took him 20 minutes to find it. Amara Jackson, position, junior analyst, terminated 26 years ago. No reason, no exit note, just gone. His pulse slammed against his ribs. Mom worked here and got axed? He scrolled, but the file was a dead end scrubbed clean. 26 years. He was 26 now. The math clawed at him, too exact, too heavy. He grabbed his phone, thumbs flying. Mom, you worked at Collins? Why didn't you tell me? Sent. The screen stayed dark. No reply. He slammed the laptop shut. The glow snuffed out, but his mind wouldn't quit. Amara wasn't a quitter. Shed raised him solo, stared down landlords and debt collectors with a glare that could melt steel. If she was scared, it was big. He paced, the floor creaking under his socks, piecing it together. Richard's stare, her warning, that empty fell, they were threads, tugging at something ugly. The door creaked open. Amara, home from the diner, grease on her uniform, shoulders slumped. She froze when she saw him, eyes flicking to the phone in his hand. You're up late, T, she said, voice tight, dodging his stare as she kicked off her sneakers. Tyrell stepped forward, pinning her with a look. Mom, what's with you? I'm killing it out there. Thought you'd be hyped. She sighed, heavy, like she'd been waiting for this. About what? She moved to the sink, running water over her hand, stalling. Tyrell's patience snapped. About Collins Enterprises. About you working there 26 years ago. About why you're acting like I signed up for a death trap. Her hands stilled, water dripping into the silence. She turned it off, slow, deliberate. When she faced him, her eyes were dark. Shadow draw was something he couldn't name. You dug that up, huh? Her voice was a rasp, barely holding. Tyrell closed the gap, heat rising. Yeah, I did. Why didn't you tell me? I'm busting my ass there, and you're sitting on this like it's nothing? Amara's jaw tightened, hands trembling. She sank into a chair, staring at the table like it held her secrets. Sit down, T, she said, soft but firm. He didn't budge, fists clenched. Not till you spill it. She looked up, eyes locking with his pain, fear, regret swirling in them. It's not about the work, she muttered, voice low. It's that place. It's cursed. Tyrell frowned, leaning in. Cursed? Mom, you're talking nonsense. I'm finally somewhere big, and you're acting like it's a horror show. What's going on? She flinched, jaw working like words were fighting to escape, then she shut down. Just be careful, T, she whispered, standing to clear her plate. Tyrell stared at her back, frustration boiling. She's hiding a bomb, I can feel it. He stayed up after she went to bed, her snores drifting through the thin walls. Richard stared those eyes, that vein kept flashing in his head. The office buzz, the file, her fear it was a puzzle. And Tyrell didn't lose at puzzles. His jaw tightened, a spark flaring in his chest. He wasn't just here to climb, he was stepping into a minefield. Whatever Amara was bearing, whatever Richard was playing at, he'd rip it open. Tyrell Jackson didn't back down, not when it smelled like this much blood. Tyrell Jackson sat at the chipped kitchen table, the dim bulb overhead casting jagged shadows across the room. His laptop was closed, but the screen's ghost lingered. Amara Jackson, terminated years ago. No reason, no trace, just a void where her past should have been. His text to her sat unanswered, a blinking taunt on his phone. Outside, Brooklyn's night buzzed car horns, faint yells, but inside the silence was a stranglehold. He stared at the empty chair, waiting for Amara to drag in from her late shift. She worked there and got burned. Why's she hiding it? The door creaked open and Amara shuffled in grease-stained uniform, shoulders sagging, eyes dodging his as she kicked off her sneakers. She froze when she saw him, gaze flicking to the phone in his hand. "You're up late, T," she said, voice tight, moving to the sink like it could shield her. Tyrell stood, chair scraping loud. "Mom, we're talking." Now she sighed heavy like she'd been dreading this. About what? Water ran over her hands, stalling. Always stalling. Tyrell stepped closer, heat flaring in his chest. About Collins Enterprises. About you working there 26 years ago. About why you're acting like it's a damn death sentence now that I'm in it. Her hands stilled, water dripping into the quiet. She shut the faucet off, slow, deliberate, and turned. Her eyes were dark pools, brimming with something raw pain, fear, a wound that never closed. "You dug that up, huh?" Her voice rasped, barely holding together. Tyrell's patience snapped. "Yeah, I did. Why didn't you tell me? I'm killing it there, and you're sitting on this like it's nothing." Amara's jaw tightened, hands trembling. She sank into the chair he'd left, staring at the table like it held her confession. "Sit down, T," she said, soft but firm. He didn't move, fists clenched. "Not till you spill it." She looked up, eyes locking with his tears glinting, but her voice steadied. "Richard Collins," she swallowed, breaking, then forged on. "He's your father." The words slammed him like a truck. Tyrell blinked, breath snagging. "What?" It came out a whisper, disbelief choking him. Amara nodded, tears slipping free. "Has your father, T. 26 years ago, we were together, late nights, dumb promises I fell for. I got pregnant, told him. And he..." Her voice cracked, raw. "He fired me, blacklisted me, left us to rot." Tyrell's knees buckled. He dropped into the chair across from her, world spinning. "My father?" His voice rose, sharp with rage. "Richard Collins, the guy I'm working for, is my father? And you kept this from me my whole damn life?" Amara's hands wrung together, knuckles white. "I was protecting you, T, as a monster cold as ice. When I told him about you, he didn't flinch. Just said, I've got a family, a reputation. This ends here. Then he cut me loose, made sure I couldn't work anywhere. I went to every firm in the city. Tee-hee." One guy laughed in my face, said, "Collins blacklisted, Unibody's touching that. I was nothing to him, a mistake he erased." The room tilted. Tyrell's mind raced her diner shifts, the endless hustle, that guy's laugh echoing in her words. "He did that to you? To us?" His voice shook, fury boiling. Amara wiped her eyes, nodding. "He's got a wife, Catherine, some rich girl and a daughter now. I was a threat he buried. I didn't want you carrying that, to knowing your own father threw you away like trash." Tyrell bolted up, chair crashing back. "Threw us away?" He paced, hands raking his hair, then slammed a fist into the wall plaster, cracking, knuckles stinging. "I've been busting my ass for him sitting in his office, kissing his ring, and he doesn't even know who I am." His laugh was bitter, jagged. "All those times I asked about my dad, and you fed me that he left bullshit. Why now, Mom? Why tell me when I'm neck deep in his game?" Amara stood, reaching for him, but he jerked back, fists throbbing. "Because I couldn't let you stay there blind," she said, voice breaking. "When you got that job, I panicked. Thought I could keep it buried, but you deserve the truth. His poison, T. Hell hurt you too if he finds out. Hurt me? Tyrell spun on her, eyes blazing. He's already hurt us. We struggled because of him. And now I'm slaving for the bastard who screwed us over? His chest heaved, rage and betrayal crashing hard. He saw it now, Richard's stare, that pulsing vein. Did he suspect? No, he couldn't. To him, Tyrell was just another grunt. That made it burn hotter. He stormed out, the door slamming shut, rain soaking the Brooklyn streets as he paced. Mind a wildfire. My blood's in that snake. I'm breaking my back for him. And he's clueless. Quit. Run? No, Tyrell didn't run. He fought. His smarts kicked in, cold and clear. He doesn't know me. That's my weapon. He kicked a trash can, metal clanging down the alley, the sound matching the storm in his head. Hours later, he slipped back in, dripping wet. Amar sat at the table, head in her hands. I'm sorry, T, she whispered. He didn't answer, just stood there, plotting. He's got a gala tomorrow night, he said finally, voice low, hard. Big rooftop bash fancy suits. Big shots. I'm crashing it. Amar's head snapped up, fear flashing. T, no, it's dangerous. Dangerous? Tyrell cut her off, grinned dark and sharp. I'm dangerous. He's gonna see me coming right where he can't hide. He'll burn it all down, Mom, for us. She stared, torn between pride and dread. But he was already moving, grabbing a borrowed tux from his closet, mind racing. He wasn't some hothead, he was a strategist. And Richard Collins was about to get smoked. The next day, the office buzzed gala prep, whispers of Richard's big night. Tyrell kept his head down, crunching numbers, but every glance at that glass-walled office fueled him. Then it happened. Richard summoned him. Tyrell stepped in, heart pounding, as the CEO leaned back, eyes narrowing, vein ticking at his temple. You've got guts, kid, Richard said, voice smooth but edged. Remind me of a ghost I buried long ago. Tyrell's fist clenched under the desk, but he played it cool. Just doing my job, sir, Richard smirked, leaning forward. Keep it that way. The air crackled threat, suspicion, a chest move Tyrell couldn't fully read. He's sniffing too close, Tyrell thought, pulse hammering. Clock's ticking. He left the office, city skyline blazing through the glass, mirroring the fire in his chest. Richard didn't know not yet, but tomorrow night at that gala he had learned. Tyrell wasn't just some grunt, he was the son Richard had crushed, and he was coming to collect. The plan locked in. Crash the party, hit Richard where it hurt, his pristine, perfect world. Tyrell's grin was ice cold as he slipped into the elevator, the office hum fading behind him. You buried us, old man. Now I bear you. Tyrell Jackson stepped onto the rooftop of the Hudson Towers, the borrowed tux clinging to him like armor black, sharp, a weapon in the night. The gala sprawled before him, a glittering fortress of wealth under a Manhattan sky. Chandeliers gleamed like captured stars, champagne flutes clinked, and the city's elite laughed in their silken satin. At the center stood Richard Collins, mid-speech at the podium, silver hair catching the light, voice booming about legacy and family. Catherine, his wife, glowed beside him in blonde, poised, a socialite queen. Their daughter Lily, 22, clapped from the front row, her smile tight, practiced. Tyrell's lip curled, venom surging. Lies built on our graves. He'd slipped past security with a fake name and a lifted invite street smarts honed from years of scraping by. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. This wasn't just a party, it was Richard's kingdom, his stage, and Tyrell was here to torch it. Every step toward the podium fueled him Imara's tears, those diner shifts, the blacklist from 26 years ago that had crushed her. He doesn't know me, Tyrell thought, eyes locked on Richard. But he's about to. He remembered Lily's cold glance from the briefing standing by Richard, sizing him up like he was dirt. Something had been off then. Now it was a piece falling into place. Richard's voice rolled on, slick as oil. Collins Enterprises stands for integrity building futures, not just fortunes. The crowd lapped it up, nodding, clapping. Tyrell's blood boiled. He shoved through the throng, shoulders brushing luxury, until he hit the stage's edge. No turning back. He leapt up, snatched the mic from Richard's hand mid-sentence, and the room went dead silent. 100 pairs of eyes snapped to him, shock, outrage, chaos brewing. Richard froze, mouth half open, face draining pale. Legacy? Terrell's voice thundered, raw and unyielding. Let's talk your real legacy, Richard. 26 years ago, you knocked up Amara Jackson. My mom then fired her to save your ass. I'm your son, the dirty secret you dumped in the gutter. Gasps tore through the crowd, phones whipping out to record. Richard staggered back, hands gripping the podium, his mask shattering. Catherine's eyes widened, hand clutching her chest. Lily stumbled, her smile vanishing. Tyrell stepped closer, voice ablade. You blacklisted her, left us starving while you played king up here. Look at me, you coward, look at what you threw away. The rooftop erupted, murmurs swelling to shouts, cameras flashing. Richard's mouth moved, soundless. Two, Didn't stammered, eyes darting to Catherine, to Lily, to the crowd. Tyrell cut him off, leaning in, mic amplifying every word. Didn't what? Didn't know? Didn't care? You crushed us, Richard. Took her job, her future our future, and built this on it. Face me. Catherine's gasp sliced through, trembling. Richard, what's he talking about? She grabbed his arm. He shook her off, face ashen. Lily stepped forward, eyes blazing, voice shaking. Dad? Before Richard could choke out a reply, she pulled out her phone, hands trembling as she swiped. Wait. Her shouts silenced the crowd, heads whipping her way. I've doubted you since I found that letter 2 years ago from Amara Jackson. 50,000 to shut her up. And you called it a scam. The air vanished. Terrell's jaw dropped, rage spiking hotter. He paid her off? The crowd roared, shock, outrage, a feeding frenzy. Lily spun on Richard, tears streaking her face. You lied to me too? You've been lying to all of us. She hurled the mic at his feet crack, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Richard flinched, hands shaking, as Lily stormed off the stage. Catherine stumbling after her, sobbing, Richard, how could you? Terrell stood rooted, chest heaving, the twist hitting like a freight train. Not just abandonment, bribery, deceit. A second knife in Amara's back 24 years after the first. The crowd turned feral board members whispered. Guests filmed, phones lighting up the night. Richard's empire wasn't cracking, it was exploding, live and viral. Tyrell locked eyes with him, voice low, lethal. You didn't just bury us, you buried your own too. Burning it, old man. Security lunged, 2 suits and earpieces charging. But Tyrell was faster. He leapt off stage, dodging through the mob, tucks flapping as he weaved past grasping hands. Stop him, someone yelled. But the crowd was a walsome cheering, some shouting, all feeding the chaos. Richard stood alone under the spotlight, a broken king, as board members bolted and sirens wailed in the distance. Tyrell hit the rooftop's edge, glancing back. Richard's silhouette crumpled, the gala a war zone of shattered glass and lies. He yelled over the din, voice cutting through, You're done! Then he vaulted the railing, dropping to a lower ledge, a move he'd scoped earlier, pure instinct, and sprinted into the shadows. The night swallowed him, adrenaline pumping, the city's pulse syncing with his own. Sirens grew louder, cops closing in, but Tyrell was a ghost, slipping through alleys, tucks soaked with sweat and triumph. He stopped blocks away, chest heaving, rain starting to fall. The gala's lights flickered on the horizon, a dying star. Richard hadn't just lost his image, had lost his family, his power, everything. Lily's twist had been the kill shot, but Tyrell had lit the fuse. For Mom, for us. He pulled out his phone, thumbs flying. It's over, Mom. He's finished. The reply pinged fast. You okay, T? He grinned, fierce, typing back. Better than okay. We won. The rain streaked his face, washing away the night's weight. Richard Collins was a shell no, his lies exposed, his kingdom ash. Tyrell straightened, tucks ragged but shoulders square. This wasn't the end, it was the reckoning, and he wasn't done yet. Tyrell Jackson spent the night after the gala pacing his room, rain pounding the window, his mind too wired to rest. The tux lay crumpled in a corner, soaked with sweat and victory, but he wasn't finished. He grabbed a napkin from the kitchen, sketching plans under the dim bulb. Something real, not Richard's rigged game. By dawn, it clicked. A nonprofit for the blacklisted, built from scratch with startup cash he'd hustled. A way to turn their pain into power, 26 years after Richard had tried to bury them. Now he sat at Mel's Diner, the greasy spoon where Amara had poured years of her life. Rain streaked the windows, blurring Brooklyn outside. But the TV above the counter blared sharp. Collins Enterprises in chaos. CEO Richard Collins resigns amid scandal. The ticker scrolled lawsuits stacking, stock crashing. Headlines screaming, our secret son sparks collapse. Tyrell's eyes flicked to Amara beside him, her hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug. She looked worn, decades of fighting etched into her face, but her grip was steady now. You took him down, T, she said, voice low, fierce. For us, he nodded, steel in his spine. He's nothing now, Mom. We're everything. The screen looped gala footage, Tyrell's roar through the mic, Lily's mic smashing the stage, Richard's face caving under the spotlight. It was viral, unstoppable, millions of views tearing his empire apart. Tyrell felt no pity, just a quiet burn of triumph. Amara glanced at him, a question flickering. You sure about this nonprofit thing? He grinned, fierce and sure. It's ours, Mom, not his. I quit this morning, no more of a shadow. We're building something real. She smirked, a spark lighting her tired eyes. Then MNT, let's make it count. Her scars were armor now, her strength his backbone. Together, they'd rewrite the rules. Later, they stood on their apartment's rooftop, the city sprawling below, a jagged skyline of lights and hustle. Rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp, alive. Amara rested a hand on his shoulder, voice steady. We didn't just survive, T. We conquered. Tyrell's grin widened, fierce and free. Hell yeah, this is our kingdom now. The skyline blazed a testament to their rise, unbowed, unbreakable. Richard was gone, forced out, his wife filing for divorce, his daughter cutting ties. His legacy was ash, but Tyrell's was just beginning. The nonprofit wasn't just a win. It was a middle finger to the past, a foundation for the future. With Amara beside him, he wasn't just a son scorned, he was a force, and the world was theirs to claim. What a ride, right? The shadow of the corner office isn't just a wild tale of scandal and rooftop chaos. It's a raw, in-your-face lesson about life. Tyrell Jackson's story teaches us that you can't bury the truth forever. Richard thought he could erase Amara and Tyrell with a firing, a blacklist, and a hush money check. But secrets are beasts that don't stay down when they blow, like Tyrell snatching that mic or Lily dropping her bombshell. They take everything with them. It's more than revenge, though real strength is in rising, not just watching the bad guy burn, even if that part felt damn good. Tyrell and Amara didn't just survive. They turned pain into power with that nonprofit, building a kingdom Richard couldn't touch. Family's another kicker. Richard's perfect wife and daughter were a house of cards, crumbling when Lily saw through his lies, while Tyrell and Amara's bond, forged in blood and grit, proved what's real lasts. Above all, it's about owning your fight. Tyrell didn't wait for justice. He crashed that gala, faced Richard head-on, and flipped the script from victim to warrior, showing us we have got the power to shape our own stories if we swing back hard enough. This isn't just drama. It's a wake-up call to live true, rise up, and hold tight to what matters. So what's your fight? Your rise? If this lit a spark in you like it did me, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell. More epic stories are coming, and I'd hate for you to miss the fire. Let's keep it rolling.